Hello, welcome to Encore's Time Master. In this video I'm going to go over the new features for version 1.2. First I'm going to start with one thing that we added as far as filters. We added a new one for yesterday by user request. And I just want to note that if you are using this week, last week, this month, or last month, any of the other things other than all dates or today, and you install the 1.2 version, you're going to be skewed by one because we inserted the yesterday. So if you are using this on install 1.2, make sure that you check your date button on the bottom. I like to use this month typically, so that would get skewed when you update to the 1.2 version. And that will also work in the reports. We also have a yesterday in here too now, so people who need to bill for, or at least track time for the day after they did something, this will give them that ability now. The main update for version 1.2 now is we have sessions, and sessions are basically like sub punch in, punch out times for time entries. Not everybody's going to use this, but for people who do need to use this, this is going to be a wonderful thing. I'm going to quickly bop over to setup and show you that we have a new session section in here. And basically, if you're the default for sessions is disabled, so Time Master will work just as normal. Now there's two other options in here. We have off by default and on by default. So you can actually, when you create a time entry, it can be a standard time entry like it is now, or it can also be a session type of time entry. You can actually do either or both. And for now what we're going to do is we're going to say on by default, and we'll go back into time entries, and if we do a new time entry, we hit the plus button. You can see down in here now in date and time we have used sessions, and that's on. So you could flip that off or on. If you flip it off, obviously you get the regular start time, stop time, duration, and the buttons on the bottom. If you're using sessions, that becomes not available in this screen. And in order to start adding to a session, the first thing you have to do is save. So we at least have to go out. Oops, let's pick a client for this. We're going to say CBS, save. Okay, so we have our session there now. Now if we actually go back in and just view the entry, we can now see that we have a sessions section in here. And what I'm going to do first, I'm going to go back to time entries, and I'm actually going to start a timer here. We'll let this thing run for a few seconds, and this will actually add a session. So you can, like I said, the sessions you can think of as a punch in, punch out. So now we'll punch back out again. And one of the things you can do is you can, this is a prompt that it can ask you if you'd like to annotate this session. So if you want to make notes for yourself on what you did for this particular punch in, punch out, you can do that. So we'll say yes, and we're going to leave a note, and we'll say it was session 1. And done, and you see it brings us right back to our main entry. So now we're actually going to go into this entry and take a look at this. So we scroll down to the date and time, we pick our sessions, and this is where our sessions will be. Now all your sessions will be on the sessions list. So we have our one session here, and you can see that it has today's date on it. It has the start time, the stop time, and the couple lines for the session notes. Okay, we'll go into that, and now you'll see the familiar screen similar to just a regular time entry where you have your start date, your start time, stop time, and duration. And these will be identical set up to the way they are in the regular time entries here, and we have our session notes below. Okay, so we could also, if we wanted to, add a session manually. If you would like to prefer to add manual sessions, we could say that we're starting at 11:40. And we're going to say that we worked for 10 minutes here. Okay, and we could put a session note in there too if we wanted to. I would recommend that you just use the notes for your own reference. You could use session notes to export to. We actually have a separate columns for all the session information, the date, and the start and stop time and durations, and the session notes. So that can be exported both with the HTML email and with the CSV export on Time Master Central. Okay, so now you see we have our two sessions here, and that's basically how sessions work. So we can go back to our entry. We're going to save. Okay, one thing I want to explain on the sessions is when you start a timer, you can see that there's two ways we can do this. You can have what we call the entry time, and you'll see that the elapsed time in the session is actually the combined time of all the sessions that were in this entry. So we can stop that. I'm going to say no, I'm not going to leave a note for now. I'm going to go into this. I'm going to show you the sessions, and you can see that we have 4 sessions in here now. So the total time of all those was the 6 hours and 30 minutes. And this is rounded. The sessions are not rounded, so keep in mind that if you're using rounding, the minutes for your sessions are not necessarily going to add up. They'll be rounded. The total amount of all your sessions will be rounded in the actual entry. So if you're rounding to 1/10 of an hour or every 6 minutes, it will take those and round all the times together and bring that up to the rounding amount for everything combined. Okay, I'm going to go into setup here. This is where the session, when the session ends, you can have it always it can ask if you want to leave a note. You can always have it bring you into the note, or you can never annotate the notes for the sessions if you don't want. The other thing we have here is what we have, the timer display, and this is what it shows on the timer screen when the timer is running. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to session time, just so we can show you what that does. Now if we go back into our CBS entry, and you can see that before it said 6 hours and 28 minutes elapsed time. That was the total raw elapsed time. 6:30 is actually rounded up. And if I start a timer now with session time, instead it shows you the elapsed time for just for this session. So if you need to know the elapsed time for just the session, you'll use the session time instead of the entry time. Okay. So that pretty much wraps up sessions. Again, they can all be exported, and you can check to export those things in the export fields in the setup. We have all the session date, start, stop, duration, and the session notes. Okay, that pretty much wraps it up for version 1.2. Thanks for all your wonderful suggestions, and hope you enjoyed this new version.